So this recording is just to give people a light into DSP, working in the field, or anybody that lives with somebody who has a developmental disability. It's very unique and very fulfilling, but just a lot more to it than what people think. I mean, a lot of people don't get to work in this field. A lot of people don't understand what it is to work sometimes with somebody that has a disability. So this audio recording is not going to have any edits because I want it to be straight from the moment, straight from now, straight from my opinions on the field and where I came from. My name is David. I've been working in the field for 18 years now, 17 years. It's been a long time. Um, got started in 2005 as soon as I turned 21. Been in the field longer than that. Been in the field going to work with my mom back then. Totally different time to be in the field. All you saw was kids go with their parents. But even before that, I had an uncle that had a disability. He was classified as MR, which would be intellectual profound disability now, but it was mild retardation back then. A lot of people still use that term, MR, and it's what it is with that. I mean, everyone has their own opinion, to how they want to classify everybody, but my uncle did have a developmental disability. He had seizures and he had epilepsy. I'm sorry, seizures, epilepsy, and he had MR. So he was aggressive with his seizures. Poor guy, didn't know. Me and him grew up together. My mom worked a lot. My dad was doing whatever. I was with my grandparents a lot. So me and my uncle grew up together. And a lot of my cousins did too. Helped. His name was Tony. Did a lot. Did a lot. I'm just thinking back all the memories. He's no longer with us. He passed away 5 years ago. Just it's sad to think about, at times because you grow up with somebody, especially when you grow up with family, but also when you have to help take care of them, give them food, And my grandfather, I was close to my grandfather, and helping him out, And even as I got older, like when I started working, I helped my grandfather out with groceries. I mean, he took good care of me. I can't complain. I mean, he was a pain in the ass, don't get me wrong. I mean, he was a hardcore old school Mexican. Anybody who knows somebody like that knows that he was old school like that. That kind of person was very hard to understand, but yet if you got to know them, they actually had one of the biggest and greatest hearts that you could possibly be around or know or experience some experience that you will never get with that kind of person because you got to invest your time in them. But anyways, sorry, always if there's a lot of rambling, this you can always skip forward just a couple seconds. So working not working but being with my uncle, helping out, getting to know them, going to day programs and stuff like that. Anybody who works in supported living, group homes, respite, CHIO, community outgoing services, you know what a day program is. It's all over. It's nationwide. And getting to know that very early, very, very early, 5, 6 years old, going to meetings, which would be annuals or quarterlies, depending on what state you live in. Every state is different. Every state has different laws besides the HIPAA laws. I mean, HIPAA is a national thing, I would take it. So getting exposed to that pretty young. My mom got into the field around 91, 92. I was born in 84, so 8 years old, 7 years old, getting exposed to a different time, like I said previously, going to work with my mom because my dad was doing whatever. I'm not going to get into that. Um, and by then, I already had a younger brother, so my younger brother was with my grandparents, and sometimes I would go to work with my mom. So being exposed to more clients like that, and when I mean exposed, I mean experiencing something new, different clients, because when you're with like my uncle, and we had several other family members, but at the time they're no longer with us as well. They left life quite early, and sad because I wanted to get to know a lot of them, but unfortunately, my family members, had more pressing disabilities than my uncle had. My uncle was able to walk and somewhat talk, and that's a conversation for another day. Um, so going to work with my mom, meeting new clients. I mean, of course, I'm not going to say their names out of respect for them, but a lot of them were characters. A lot of them were characters. There was husband and wife. There was couple couples, and it was brand new to me. I couldn't think that this was possible. I'm just like, how? When you're 8 years old, the world is so closed in. You're so closed in. You only believe. I mean, it's different nowadays because you have technology, but back then in the 90s, you only had what you saw in front of you. You didn't have, I mean, or unless you had a teacher that was really willing to express their life experiences, and then you went off of that, or you knew you mom and dad's friends, or your friends fathers, mothers. It was a different world. It was a different time. So getting to know all this and how they live their life, the clients, I mean, individuals, consumers, um, however you want to phrase them. But when you work in the field, you get the terms, clients, their HIPAA names, their initials, however you would like to phrase it. And I hate to say it like that too, because I really do take care of my individuals. I still am in the field, of course, but you get to experience that they had more than what you thought, and which was really so cool. And you got to meet cool guardians. Um, I met a very wonderful English woman. Very wonderful. She was an aunt to one of the workers. One of my mom's supervisors back then. And I mean, she was a pain, but the the lady, I think that was her aunt, if I'm sorry if I didn't state that. A very wonderful English woman, very proper, very nice. I'll never forget her because she bought me a Nike hat that I wanted. My parents couldn't afford it. And I asked my mom in front of her, and she just told me to be patient. You know, and I was raised to respect my elders. But you gotta remember, you get smacked back then. Nowadays, it's not the same. So I just asked my mom. My mom told me, don't bring it up. But Rita, her name is Rita, a very wonderful woman, bought it for me. I couldn't believe she bought it. She waited all the way to Christmas. I think I asked in the middle of June or July, and it was a green Nike hat. I think I saw Michael Jordan wear one, and I wanted it at the time. That was, the Bulls where we lived at in here in Indiana. So yes, we're within the state of Indiana. So if anybody wanted to know that this is where everything is going about, um, so being exposed to all that, meeting her, oh, and she was wonderful too. She was like, besides buying me something like that, I didn't expect it, and I always hold that dear. I wish I could have kept the hat, but of course, moving around, a lot more personal stuff. But she was wonderful. But you wouldn't have that kind of experience without being in the field, and it was something I took with me throughout. And um, as time went on, the mid 90s and everything, my mom got promoted to being a supervisor. So we actually moved in with clients. We lived in a quad. It was like a duplex, but it had four apartments in there. We took the upstairs one, and it was so funny. I lived right across the street from my school. My middle school was late like 60 times in 1 year. They wanted to actually like crucify me, but it was funny. Sorry, and I use that just as like they just were like, you live literally 30 seconds away. I was like, I wasn't in a rush to go. If I was 2, 3 minutes late, sorry, I can get dressed at 7:55 and be there by 8:02. But different times. Um, that was a unique experience as well because that's when I got to see schizophrenia, bipolar, especially this young. He wasn't young at the time. I think he was already older. We're gonna call him D. Um, he was. He had a lot of stuff going on. Abused by dad, and just racist to all end. Ironic part is he was a white man dating a black woman, but then he taught his son to be racist. So everybody was an N word. Everybody was something. So that was interesting. He even called me one, which I was laughing at because I'm Mexican. So I was like, okay, and you just laugh it off. And that's another thing with this field is humor. You have to have a sense of humor in this field. You have to really, no matter what, a good, bad, laugh it off. Laugh it off. Because you're going to get called names. I got called so many names, but I'm sorry, I keep digressing. Like I said, skip forward or back. So living with the clients, and then we had a client that had come to find out later, she had HIV towards the end. But anyways, I'm sorry, and she's no longer with us. So I mean, I'm not saying her name or nothing, but this was at the time. Then we had one client that, she was high too. We had two clients downstairs that were very high functioning, along with the one individual. Then we had the other lady living upstairs, literally right across from us, that had HIV. I mean, they all had their issues, schizophrenia, bipolar. Come to find out, it'd be, multiple personality disorder. Back then, it was completely different. There wasn't the like anxiety. Of course, was always treated, but it was never as prominent as it is now, where there's so much mental health factors compared to back then. Oh, but we'll get into that. Getting to experience all that, and it was sad at times because a lot of the clients were misunderstood back then. Back then, kids were a little bit more cruel because, yeah, we always had the bullies thing, like, oh, well, don't be a bully. But it wasn't like nowadays where everybody's like, has some form of opinion on social media, just like, well, that's, you still have bullies, but they're more keyboard warriors nowadays. You get to say it from 3 or 4 miles ahead instead of straight to someone's face. So bullies now are not the typical, 6 foot tall in fifth grade and, stuff like that. It was harder for clients back then. Individuals, people with developmental disabilities. It was a lot harder, at least where I was at. We were in Northwest Indiana, Upper Indiana, like near Lake Michigan, up in that snow belt area. So it was really, really unique time. As time went on, like you really care for the individuals. We lived there for 4 years, 3 to 4 years, and it was hard when we had to move. My mom moved on. She took a lot of people hopefully know this term as a coordinator. We She had more people, and it was kind of ironic in a way because a lot of clients that she had from when she first started, when she took me around them, a couple clients followed her over to the new company that she got hired with, and she didn't know it, but she became their Q. And I remember seeing her, and I didn't really express. She went through a lot. My mother was a very caring lady. She's known up here in Northwest Indiana, within like the upper Indianapolis, Kokomo, all that area there. They all know her by her name, and it's so funny because she, poor lady, she tries to remember everybody, but sometimes you meet everybody. But I'm sorry, let's go back to where we're going. She did a lot of nights where she up all night, especially living there with, clients, consumers, individuals. It was hard. And even at the time we helped out too. So it was funny, like I would, go downstairs, throw the trash out at 8 o'clock at night, just make sure, I would actually go say goodnight to them. And I'll tell my mom, hey, hey, they're asleep, they're relaxing. Or, I wouldn't go in the rooms or nothing. I would just like peep in there, be like, hey, good night. I like the clients. I always had fun with them. Nobody ever heard me or my brothers. We had fun. And my mom, I thank my mom for that. It really opened up my eyes to a lot. She did a lot for us. But I'm sorry, once again, gotta stay on track here. She did a lot, really her work and her heart really, really did a lot. And it showed, her work showed. It showed for itself. It spoke for herself. So she got hired as a Q, took over a lot. It was so funny. One day, it was probably 2 months into her being at work at her new job. And I went there, it was on a payday. I ditched, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I ditched school. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go meet my mom for lunch. And I went there, and I will never forget her, the receptionist from Impact. She's a sweetheart. I asked, hey, is my mom Pat around? I just wanted to visit her. They were so nice to let me in. That company knew me from when I was 14 years old. 14 years old. They knew me. They knew me throughout the years. So I went there, and my mom was downstairs. It was payday. I didn't realize it was payday. So back then, you had to go get your checks. It wasn't like direct deposit was the biggest thing in the world. You went down there and you got your checks. This was around 98, 99. So yeah, so we jumped forward 95 to 99. So this is all going down, and I'm just laughing, and I'm driving already by then. So I'm, well, yeah, I did drive kind of illegally, but we're not going to state that. I mean, fast forward. So I went there, and yeah, I was 15 when she started her job. So they all met me when I was 15. So I remember going there, and I drove. I actually had a permit. I remember now. I mean, I'm 38 now, but it took me a little bit to remember. So I go downstairs, and all the queues, and there's a couple of the supervisors, and all these people are waiting for their checks, and they're all my mom's people because I stopped by a couple times before. I met some of the staff. They were all cool with me. I would have conversations with them. So I'm just like, why are you guys waiting here? And they're like, your mom wants to talk to us. So it was so funny. I was like, I'm sorry. A couple of the staff were mad. They kind of like said hi to me and just kind of brushed me off. And I mean, I don't blame them because I get it. You want to be nice, but your mother is the boss of them, at least. She's that's her staff. And I'm just like, I go, hey, mom. And she goes, hi. She goes, I can't do anything right now. She goes, I'm busy. I'm like, I noticed. I noticed. And I went to actually go get her lunch. And coming back, I think she only moved up two people. I think. And I stayed around the area because there's a fairgrounds near the building where they're at. And I went back, and they barely, it was like at least 15 people online, and she got to like the last three, like 3 hours later. So I know these people were pissed, and it was so funny to watch. But her houses got cleaned up. A lot of the staff that were bad got weeded out. And that's the thing about this field, as I learned later on. But now we're going to move up a little bit. I was already 15, 16 around that time in 2000. She stayed around to 2002, and then she went to go become a case manager. She went to become a case manager. She for the state of Indiana, and it was a tough transition for her. She hated leaving the office, and she got thrown 30 clients right off the bat. And once again, as you work in the field and you work for a couple companies, you start seeing clients that you used to work with. And, at the time, I wasn't traveling with my mom. My mom just said, do you remember so and so? Of course, she couldn't tell me. She always told me the first name. And she goes, yeah. I was like, yeah. She goes, they're doing good. And I'm like, okay, awesome. Like, I'm happy for them. I never knew their medical stuff, if they, you know, had diabetes or anything, developed anything, heart issues or nothing. I never wanted to know their diagnosis or anything, or any further, dual diagnoses that they had. And I just wanted to make sure that they were okay. That's all. And it was just, and I saw actually a couple of them because at the time times were rough. We didn't really get established either financially until I was 18, 19 years old. So we all shared cars. I remember sharing my first $300 car with my mom. That poor lady took that little Acclaim, 1990 Acclaim around to my Malibu. She used that. My Colorado truck at the time. That's a few years later, but she's used it before. So with her being in case management, so it was a tough adjustment for her. Case management companies at the time were rough. They were like little mom and pops. They had like five staff to like 200 people. I don't see how, not my mom's company, but other companies, you hear about. And my mom was telling me about these companies that had like five people, and then the degrees at the time were outrageous. You can have a high school. You can have sorry about that. You These people had high school degrees, but they couldn't sign off on their paperwork. You The state literally would not have them. They had to have somebody with a bachelor's or a master's sign off on their paperwork. So it defeated the purpose. I always was just like, how is somebody with a high school degree? And, I only have a high school, but I'm just like thinking to myself, that's not right, like the state was so out there back then in those times. So everything was still the same until I arrived. I arrived working with the people with disabilities, and even throughout the time, still helped out with my uncle. You know, Time grew on. Me and my uncle got close. But of course, I worked at working in retail, which was a pain in the ass at the time. I mean, I think I loved working at retail during the it was a pain in the ass, but I liked it probably then compared to working it now if I ever tried it again, because social media, you have people filming up and down the stars nowadays. I would hate to be in the video. So back then, phone cameras barely came out. I mean, that was another thing too. Technology. I remember seeing my mom with Nextels, the bricks, the ones you can destroy a windshield with, and I mean, the phone would be okay because it had rubber around it, and it was like 2 inches of thick ass rubber. The yellow banana ones, you guys, if you watch this, anybody watches this, they'll see or hears this, you know. Um, so 2005 February, I turned 21, and Impact said I can go work with them. That's the company my mom was with. So I worked with them, stayed on for 10 years with them, 8 years, 10 years with them. Met wonderful clients there, got exposed to a lot there too, and a lot of them knew I knew what I was doing because of my mother. My mother taught me everything. So as case management, as she was learning, so was I. I was learning everything. She wanted me to know everything. A notice of action. That means client individuals, how much they're getting billed an hour. Like stuff like that. Everything. Individual support plan. It was, and then there was ways of two ways of PCISP was individual support planning, personal center planning. I don't know if every state is the same as that. I know some are different. Some of them are more thorough, some are less, some of them are more redundant than others. It just varies where you listen from and how you differentiate paperwork. I mean, I think it all gets the job done, but it's just how you go about it and what the state regulates is totally different. She taught me, like, say, this is the code words if they use this, these are the terms they're going to use. And you get to learn all that. And it was so interesting because you enter the field, you work there. This is just, I'm only dating back for the first 10 years or so. And also, too, I worked for another company, too. So, working two different companies. Um, and also around that time, too, getting into DCFS, helping. It was the 4A program or 4B. I forgot how it was labeled. Um, and at the time too, getting into foster caring. I mean, I'm not going to focus on that too much because this is about just people with developmental disabilities. I can always do another one later on DCFS. That will take another half hour. Working all that in the first 10 years was rough. Getting to know all this, your brain hurt. I should have went to college during the time, but of course, you think you're in your 20s and different mentality from everybody else. I was always the one who felt like working more at that time was making more money. I was always like, make more money now, kind of rest later, but come to find out, spending a lot more at that time too. And also, I partied a lot, had a lot of friends at the time. A few years down the line, I would meet a girl that I would be with for 5 years. In between that time, got in debt. Um, she was a nice girl. I can't. We were both two different two different ideals. It was nice at the first 3 years, but the last two were, we should have got out a lot sooner. Sorry, just keep going. But anyways, during that time, just so much going on, working different shifts, working with different clients. You get to know them. Once again, add different aspect because, like I said to you guys before, I only saw it. Now being in it, I will never forget. I walked into, it was one of the individuals my mom used to work with. And I'll never forget, he introduced himself to me, and then he just went to his room and didn't want nothing to do with me. And getting exposed, and let me say this too, so anybody who's listening to this, anybody who's worked the field, anybody that is, getting used to a new client, walking into their life as just as much they're coming into yours, you are, it's a weird feeling. You're analyzing everything in the house. You're looking at everything. You're trying to make sure you're on top of your game. You want to present yourself right. You want to make sure that you're more comfortable with the client. My best advice is don't do the baby game. Don't be like, oh, you're just a handsome fellow, or you're just, you're just, oh, you're a good guy. That just, my biggest thing is my best advice to anybody in the beginning, or if you're just going to somewhere new with a new client, talk to them like you would talk to anybody else. Have a good sense of humor. Don't don't degrade them with their, like, yes, some of our clients don't are not high on the spectrum, high functioning, low functioning, however you want to phrase it. Talk to them, be like, hey, what's your favorite baseball team? I like them too. Actually, I don't like that team. Like, but that doesn't mean I won't be happy for you. some conversations like that will work. Um, so getting into that at the moment to experience all that was very unique. I remember I was mentally exhausted my first day. I remember telling my mom, how did you do this? How did you even manage to do it? That was my first day because I was just mentally drained because the common thing, and anybody can attest to this, that they make you read the books. You can read the ISP, the PCP, the whole just summary of someone's life, behavior plans, notes, progress notes. Progress notes, I think, are something else to me. Yes, they're purposely for billing, but a lot of people don't know what the hell to write on them. And I remember just thinking, okay, so this client is very high behavioral. Come to find out, like, he would hit himself more before he would hit anybody else. I mean, yes, he had a couple behaviors, but that some of those staff, from my point of view, kind of deserved it because they talked to him like he was garbage. And hey, you know what? I always feel like if you get talked like garbage too, and to some of the clients, that's just behavior that comes as part of their diagnosis. If you're a DSP, you know what you're coming into. You know what you're getting yourself into. Prepare for the hitting, the biting, the slapping. The You got to roll with the punches. Literally, like, I can't even tell you. I probably got bit 3 months ago. Been in the field for 18 years and led my guard down for 3 seconds. Got bit on the wrist. Trying to help a client as he fell during a seizure, took a chunk out of my wrist. Um, it's new, and every client's home you walk into, every client, and sometimes these clients are not going to like you. These clients are not going to like you. These clients are just like you're another person in their life. It's not like how I said about my family member, my uncle Tony. I loved him to death. He was always happy to see me. He was happy to see my dad. He was happy to see my mom. He was happy to see us every day. So, that's familiar territory. But when you walk, or you're a child of a staff, and you walk, say, "Hey, how you doing?" Of course, you're just like, "Oh, you're the cool token person that we can talk to." Like you're somebody who's just brought along. Um, you Then when you're officially staff, you're treated, and clients know, individuals know. They know. They read you. They look at you. They look at your body language. They know everything about you within the first shift. They know if you're going to be a pushover, if you're going to be, um, if you're going to be a person that's going to stand your ground and firm. If you're a person that at least asks them, "Hey, do what you got to do and let's have fun." I say there's like 4 or 5 different types of DSPs. There's not one that's perfect. You're gonna meet people that are so lenient, but yet they get the job done. You have some that are just lazy. You have some that should never be in the field. You have a bunch. I mean, I can go on and on and on. Even though I say five, there's probably 6 or 7 if I list them. But being yourself in front of a client really means a lot to them. Talking to them, a lot of mistakes I made too. You see so much, like I saw so much of how my mother communicated, and you think, oh man, you can go do that. No, you have to find your niche. You have to find your niche. You cannot try to be like anybody else. You can't just, if somebody's a team of the Bulls, you can't be like, yeah, that's my favorite team. Like I said, you'd be like, oh, I don't like the Bulls, I like the Pacers. Be like, hey, but we're going to have fun if we watch the game, right? We're going to get pizza and just watch the game, and whoever wins, wins, right? Best man wins. And clients like that. They like competition. They like something. I mean, even if they lose, I've had some clients that were just like ecstatic that they even got to watch a game with you. It's all about just, it doesn't mean the ends don't justify the means. The means is you're spending time with them. It's something that's unique to them, making their life unique. And it doesn't, you don't have to go above and beyond. I know I'm getting a little bit too far off track, and I'm good at that, but it could be something if they have a frozen pizza, make it for them and just say, hey, let's eat in the living room. Some people have dining plans. I get it. I get it. Cut their pizzas up, or bring a TV tray. Or if some of them are parade. Parade. Sorry, I say parade. I don't know why. Bring it in a cup. Go watch TV with them. Or heck, put it on your phone if you got a streaming plan. Like it's something that it doesn't have to cost a lot. But as much as I say that now, let me get into this. Now you meet supervisors. You've got house supervisors. I've probably had, out of the 18 years I've worked in this field, probably three, four good supervisors that had a heart. I mean, genuinely a heart. I mean, you couldn't have asked for better people at that time, and people who you want to be around. People that make you. I always feel that a supervisor should make you feel like you're better, not better than them, but like should make you want to be better than them. So, for example, I'm going forward a little bit, but I was a supervisor for a company. I wanted my staff to do better than me, and there were a few staff that were good. I mean, I told as I was leaving the company, I told one of my supervisors, "You need to hire this person because they're better than me," and it's the truth. This person was better than me on a lot of things, and I felt like this is the person you need. But I'm sorry, back to my initial dealings with some house supervisors. Like I said, there was probably three or four good house supervisors who I had that did everything for their clients. They had their house running. They literally had a good eye for staff. Good eye for staff. Of course, you're going to have some staff that are out there, and you have to do the best. And it wasn't until I became a house manager later on that I understood how to manage. I mean, I've had three houses I had five at one point, and I had over 35 staff, and to manage 35 personalities, including myself, it's challenging. It's challenging. It it really makes you think. And then, but back then, you're just thinking, why did you hire that person? And you hire them because they are body and they're able to do the job. It might not be the best work, but they at least take care of the client. And you understand that you get what you can out of people. And I had a couple good supervisors that knew how to get the best out of people, and I learned from them. So as much as my mom was a big influence, I have to thank some of the people I was with. They taught me how to do things a little bit more differently. And I've discussed that with my mom. I've joked with my mom. I was like, "Oh, that person was a better teacher than you." I mean, I can't ever go back and say my mom wasn't the best. She really was. But I've had some good supervisors, but man, I've had some stinkers. I had some people that were just sleeping. I remember the first couple years of me working in there, I had this one supervisor. Oh, if she ever hears this, I don't even care if you do. She left me dishes. She left me, literally one day pots and pans and stuff. It took me an hour and a half to clean up the house. And it was apartment 800 square feet, two bedrooms, two baths. It should have been a simple thing, but she she was not made for this field. She had too many issues. I think she had some mental stuff going on, and that's just me as being an assumption. I'm just assuming here, making my own assumptions. But I was so glad when they put this supervisor because I wanted to get out of there. And I hated to leave my clients, but I asked, hey, and luckily enough, the coordinator, there's the house supervisor, coordinator, or so on, so on, so on, until you get to like the regional. It depends on your company, state, how many levels of management, the people who make more than you. So luckily enough, he had good foresight. He was a good guy too. Um, he said, "Well, how about you try a different house you know, in the city? In Valpo, it was Porter County, more further down, more to the east of Indiana." So I went to another house, met the supervisor. I stayed with her all the way till like the end, until they moved me because I had to go work somewhere else. I did job coaching too, but did a lot in the field. They moved me because I couldn't, because I was stressed out a lot. I was working a lot of overtime. They saw it, and I thanked that one supervisor actually, that one coordinator, because the coordinator left. Another one came in. She noticed I was burned out because I was working a lot of overtime. Geez, I was making like $1,000 checks. And this was back then when stuff was going on. Sorry, everything's getting kind of diluted. But anyways, this supervisor, she was really good. She talked to me a lot, made herself accessible, and I don't know how she did it because sometimes when I was a supervisor, I wanted to wring staff's neck. I just was just like, how do they do that? And you have some staff saying that they've been around for 20 years. You're just like, are these clients okay? I mean, you hope that everybody's okay, but you're just like, are these clients breathing? You literally get that from working with some of these staff. They're incredible. But anyways, she was a really big positive influence on me, and I still talk to her to this day. Talked to her a couple times, a little bit here and there. She's got her own stuff going on, but she was good. I appreciate her. She knows who she is. Um, and then moving towards the latter of the 8 years, worked a lot of DCS and everything. Broke up with my, ex girlfriend. That was the girl who I met, who I helped me get in debt. We helped each other get into debt. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Recording this pretty late, actually. Sorry. Was drinking some Gatorade. Not probably the smartest choice, and I don't want to edit. Like I said, I don't want to edit this because I want this to be in the moment. Um, Now towards the latter 8 years till now, worked some DCFS a little bit more. Um, Mentor, supervised visitations, and I have to thank being in the field because at the time you needed a college degree too. But here goes the little loophole that a lot of companies used, was that you had to have 5 or more years in the field, which includes working developmental disability. The experience equals the college. So I already had 8 to 10 years. Got in the door that way. Um, so worked a lot of that and tried to manage working. I quit Impact, went to Help at Home, brought some clients over from there. Worked at in-home for a few years, and that was and my advice to anybody working here, I'm going to spend a couple minutes on this topic here. If you ever work in homes, don't try to be the guardian's friend. I made that mistake. Me and the guardian got really close, and it wasn't anything inappropriate. It was nothing that people are like thinking what I'm saying right now. It wasn't like a sexual thing or nothing like that. It was just that we became really good friends and a lot open with each other. And I was ready to leave, you know, because I was with him when he was 13 until he was 18. I still love him and miss him. I really do. He was a sweetheart, and I hope he's okay too. He knows who he is. And knowing my luck, he'll find this video on YouTube. He will. Um, but they one day the young man called himself a name. He he was getting more behaviors too as time went on. His agitation was going on, and the stepdad at the time didn't like me talking to the guardian because the stepdad didn't have. I mean, he wasn't even a stepdad at the time. I think they got married afterwards, from what I heard and from what I understood. So, but he is his stepdad regardless now. But I'm referring to him, as that. Um, and they made some outrageous claim that I called him a name and stuff like that, which is true. But come to find out, she was really mad that I was leaving. I was no longer going to be around to help take care of their son. You know, I put extra hours in, time I never got paid for. I think everyone has done that, and and it ended really bad. Like I haven't seen him probably since 2013, and we're already 9 years later. And I seen relatives and stuff who remember me in Crown Point, Indiana, Northwest Indiana, in the area, and they say, oh, hey, he's doing good and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, cool. I hope everything. I wish them the best. I really do. I don't wish no ill will on any staff, any client, especially any client, any manager, anybody that I've worked with, and we've had some dealings. Like, I don't wish anything bad upon you guys because it's hard. It's a hard field to be in. It really is. I mean, you love it at times, but self-imposed trauma. I always say it. Like, you come work here, you're imposing yourself to trauma. But anyways, keep your distance with guardians. My advice to you, because you get to love the clients, you get to know them, you think that the family's welcoming you in. These families don't realize at times that when you set them off, they think more about their child than you. Even if the child's right or wrong, the child could be wrong. The child could have smacked you 5 times, and you could have just pushed away or try to get away, leave the room. You could be accused of neglect, and the parents can go after you and use that against you because they're going to think of themselves and their child before you. It's the real world, and I'll explain why. I have a son who has autism, and he had an incident at school. So yes, I do have 3 kids now, and I didn't state that earlier, stating it now. And even I caught myself thinking, what did you guys do? There was an incident. They had to pull him away. They had to use some form of physical intervention. I'm like, why, and we understood it was part of everything going on. But you're just thinking in the back of your head that you don't care about that staff. You care about your child. But then I didn't think about it. Even then, as I was ongoing, I met my wife. I met her in 2013. Beautiful, beautiful woman. I still love her. She puts up with so much for me. Um, she deserves everything in the world times 10. Times 10. Times actually infinity dealing with me. Watching me stressed out. Gave me my family, and I love her to death. Gave me my beautiful son, Caden, my daughter, Allie, and my son, of course, who I just described, Emmett. So now, as we move on, I'll reiterate again, please keep guardians at bay. Keep them to where they know a little bit about you, but they know enough to trust you. They know that you have experience. They know that you have. I'm not telling you to lie to them. I'm telling them, like, you just tell them how long you've been in the field. You tell them what you've done a little bit here and there. Don't tell them your blood type. Don't tell them your social. I'm saying like really personal stuff, because if you told them that, hey, you went partying, they're going to be like, literally, I've heard of this and I've seen it actually too. one of my friends who I worked with at one of the companies, he had to take a drug test because he told the family he went out and had, you know, he smoked and he drank. So they made him do a drug test. Luckily enough, there wasn't a high trace enough because the party was like 5 days ago and this dude barely goes out and does anything. He just had one night of getting one night of release. Um, so be very careful. That's my advice to you, no matter what state. If you know the English language, you please understand that. Don't take offense to it. Maybe you knew a family for 20 years, but please know that one day their child gets hurt, it's them over you in a minute. If you have that one guardian that's the exception to what I'm saying, you hit the jackpot because most guardians I see will always choose their child, the person that they're over, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a relative. They could be a friend too. Let me reiterate that because I've dealt with some guardians that are just friends or like distant relatives, like cousins that are lives in other states, which I think is so funny. And they'll choose them over you. I've seen it, dealt with it. Please take my advice. Hopefully I know it sounds crazy, but it's the truth. But anyways, now moving on, I said about my family, getting to start a family, but starting the family at the time was rough, and it wasn't for what you guys think it is. It's because my uncle was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. He It's still hard. I haven't really come to terms with it too much, so if I'm kind of like breaking up a little bit, I'm sorry. It still hurts. Got really close to him. He was a pain in my ass, but I love him. I really do. I miss him. I visit him at the mausoleum he was placed in, and I just tell him I love him every day. It was really hard. 8 months. He was given 6 months, but he was a stubborn SOB. I love him. I do. And carrying him in and out destroyed my back, literally carrying him in and out of cars and getting him into wheelchairs, washing him up. Like, literally, he was full, total care. And if you've been in this field for a while, you know what that means. You know what that means. Anybody skilled side, CNA certified, you know completely what I mean. Watching him deteriorate, he went from 100, he went from 200, he chunked up to 205, down to 130 pounds, and it was my muse. I call him my muse in a way because he's the reason why we got into the field. He was being taken from me. Very, very hard. But he would probably smack me right now and tell me, why am I even getting so sentimental? And I love him for that. He would just love to hit me in general, walk right by him. His little sound. I love him. I miss him. So he was on the decline, and going through everything with him. And this is another thing too. I'm gonna put this in there, and I'm sorry. I'll kind of move on. And I love my uncle so much, and I talk about him like if he lived down the street from me. He's everywhere with me, as I say. But my grandfather knew the group home. Funeral home, and they were able to let me drive the hearse. So I gave him his last ride. So I literally took care of him till we placed him in there. And may I say thank you to, hopefully I'm not going to get anybody in trouble here. 5 Funeral Home. I love you guys. Thank you. Took care of my grandfather too. Without you guys exposing him to mortician work after he retired, I can't even thank you guys enough. You guys did help a lot with the family, but I'm sorry. Let me move on now. Um, so it was tough at that time. That really weighed a lot on the family, my family, because my kids didn't see me. I was working DCS, working midnights, and then taking care of my uncle. And it's sad to say, if in this field, if you work midnights, I think that's an unspoken or unwritten rule in a book that we all have, that midnight staff have. You're gonna sneak some sleep in. Even supervisors, coordinators, case managers, anybody who has ever worked a midnight shift for this in this field knows that you sleep. Don't lie. Don't even lie. If you do, I want you to look in the mirror and smack yourself, because you have slept. And um, so as time went on, had my daughter. Right. Well, my daughter was born in 2016. So yeah, it was the first 3 years of us starting our family, adding, you know, we had Kaden, we're adding Allie, and then my son Emmett was in 2016. No, 2018. Sorry. Jeez, I'm all over the place here. Take me a minute here to get back from. Like I said, love that man. I miss him. Um, as soon as Emmett was brought into the world, he was on his way out, and it was rough. It was really, really rough. I literally left DCFS because I couldn't do it. It was hard, because you have to do case notes. You have to show up for court. I wasn't doing that. I chose my uncle over that. I mean, I think anybody would. If I explain, if you guys are listening to my voice and the sincerity I have, what I had to do for him, um, it was really hard. It was a lot, and if you hear how I'm talking and jumbling stuff, that's how it felt. That's how it felt, and I think how I'm talking now is what my brain was going through. It was really hard, and I'll never forget this too. I'm gonna add this in here. I know what I'm giving you guys some negative things, but just as positive, my uncle passed, and 2 weeks later, no, probably take that back, 6 days later, almost a week later, I was listening. I'm Mexican, so my family was really into Tejano music, which is popular Mexican music. It's almost like anybody knows Selena. It's a form of that, but not as poppy. So I was listening to one of my uncle's favorite songs. He used to love listening to it while laying down. And all of a sudden, my son was probably 2 months old. He started swaying his head, and I'm like, oh, geez. I'm like, that's my uncle telling me that everything's okay. But I just wanted to add that to you, because, and plus the way he was swerving was the same way my uncle used to swerve. So that's what kind of got me wanted to share that with you guys. Um, so leading us to the last few years, buying a house. Mom had some issues. Unfortunately, she had a stroke. I felt so bad for her too. Oh my God, all this happening within around the realm of these, 8 years. And like I said, this is how your brain feels. Like but fortunately enough, my mom had a stroke 3 weeks later. You couldn't even tell she had a stroke. This lady, beautiful lady, she did so much. She told the nurses that she had to get back to work. I'm sorry, I took a minute to really look at that. Like, I cried like if I'm joking, but I mean I cried like if I stubbed my toe. This lady had a stroke and wanted to get back to work, and I was with her. Me and my brothers were with her every day. Um, Now she lives with me in my home. But don't. She's still a case manager. Don't let her fool you. She's still a stubborn. I will say this. Forgive me, a stubborn ass woman. But I love her, and that is my daughter's partner in crime, and my son's too. But I mean, her and my daughter, they're the same. My daughter is like 7 going on 30. Um, so in between all this, you have so much going on. I went to go work for Indiana Mentor, and I met the day program manager there. Me and her took a really big liking to each other right away because she worked within the DCS field as a therapist, trauma therapist. I worked as DCS as, facilitator stuff. And once again, the world is small. You work with people who already understand you know, your experiences and everything. And she helped me throughout the ranks. Um, and and as much supported living I worked, I never really did group homes too much. I've been in and out of like helping group homes throughout the years, but never ever really worked group homes. Got exposed to what we call ICF, which is group homes. I actually opened up a group home. I became a manager. I was supposed to be the manager of the day program, but she kind of pushed me to take that position. I still blame her. I don't care. Me and the supervisor, my supervisor who I met through Mentor, we had a falling out recently. Um, Nothing bad. I mean, we're still cordial to each other, but it's just when I split off into management, I think I set a different precedent. Like, I was able to get staff in there and work. Staff wanted to work with me, and I'm not tooting my own horn at all because I don't think I was the greatest person sometimes, like because I was learning how to be a supervisor. And once again, you know how you go back to saying that you watch people do something for so long that when you're in it, you're automatically exhausted because you're like, how did you do it? That was me at this time again. DSP is also a cycle where you're constantly, and don't ever, another piece of advice, another asterisk here, don't always think you know everything because you don't. Service codes change, especially in this state, and especially in Indiana. Um, go in with an open mind. Don't go in there with just like, oh well, I can, like, for example, oh yeah, I've had 18 years experience. That doesn't mean jack shit, and I'll say that to you as much as I say that because you have to have an open mind, and like I said, treat clients with respect. You can't say you know everything, but you have to have that open mind. Yes, you've had experiences. Yes, you can use some of your experiences in there, but it's not always going to be the same. Sorry, I'm not trying to be a hypocrite on there. I'm just saying when it comes to revolving around coming into different positions, different houses, different stuff, keep an open mind. And this is what I'm learning at the time now. Like I really, really started to learn more and more and more. I mean, I learned a lot up to that point being a staff, but when you're in management, you have to be exposed to, you have to be willing to learn and learn and learn and learn and learn. Um, it took a while to understand personalities. Did it for a couple years, and recently I just left the company. Um, a lot, and the company didn't treat me bad. They really didn't. I did a lot for that company. Um, I went back to supported living to be a supervisor there. Cleaned up a lot of houses. God, they gave me the house that had so many investigations. I cleaned it up. I had over, and then they gave me two more houses during, last year. So I had five houses. And for anybody who's a house supervisor to have five houses, or lead staff, or however you want to phrase yourself, program supervisor, the person right above staff, five houses right off the bat, 34 personalities. And then you have 8 clients. No, you have 9 clients. So, and then they weren't paying me what I had to pay. So that was another reason why I was kind of like out there. And plus, I have some house stuff now. I'm 38 years old. I wasn't young, and it's a young man's game too, or a young woman's game. Um, I mean, heck, if you're 50 and you can jog 6 miles in 7 minutes, by all means, like this is then you're still in the game. But I mean, this job does wear on your body. I can't even tell you, even midnights, like you, even if you get a couple hours sleep, you're still tired. You have to get a client up, shower them. You're gonna have to give them meds. You're gonna have to do a lot. And I know we're an hour and 5 minutes in, and but it's I at least wanted to share some of my experiences and some of my advice because it's hard out there to be a DSP. It's hard out there, even to be a supervisor, coordinator, areas, regional director, case manager, behaviorist, music behaviorist, speech therapist, job coach. Anything that deals with people that have developmental disabilities is rough. It's a thankless job. Yes, you're going to get praises, but take that praise for that couple hours and move on and do what you got to do. Um, I hopefully, I didn't bore you guys to death. I wanted to give you guys some insight to what I went through life and what my experiences were and what I've learned, and probably, hopefully, some of the things I said you felt. Maybe you went through similar experiences. Maybe you were exposed to this when you were young, and then it was harder when you got older, and then you did different things within the field. Um, but don't think of anything negative, as I said. Like, everything, you have to laugh it off. That's my last piece of advice to any DSP or anybody who works in this field. Have a sense of humor. Treat all clients with respect. It doesn't matter. They can call you, hey, I'm fat. They've been called a fat ass. I don't care. I will be like, that's Mr. Fat Ass to you. um, you got to have a sense of humor about it. I've been called a bitch. I've been called everything. And I laugh and I tell my wife to this day, I was like, do you think I am one? I mean, that's probably not the right question to ask your wife because they're going to be like, yeah, you agree with, just trying to make yourself laugh. Um, Remember, you're going to sleep it off. You're going to sleep it off. You're going to do the same thing tomorrow as you did today. Unless you have a day off, then it's 2 days later. That means you're going to have 2 nights of sleep to get over whatever you got to get over, and you go back to work. Doesn't matter if it's a client that got you upset, or what a client said, if it hit a nerve, get over it. And if you have staff there, you're not married to the staff. Go home. My advice to you, take care of the client. Come to work, take care of the client. Make sure everything's good. Make sure you sign off on everything. No med errors to all of you. That goes for all 50 states. No med errors. And then you go home. And then you do it again tomorrow. Or like I said, the next day, a couple of weeks, depends what kind of staff. Full-time, part-time, PRN, whatever, floats your boat, what position. But I just wanted to really get this out there because I felt like some people don't understand what people go through in this field. Or you probably felt like this and you don't know how to convey it to someone. Or you could be going through, like I said, something similar and you just don't know. You don't know if anybody else is doing it. But I want everybody to stay safe out there. Thank you for listening. Please, please just take care of your clients. Take care of yourselves. And hopefully, if you guys like this, just let me know. None of this was for any kind of profit gain. It was just out here sharing my thoughts. Thank you.